My name is Elena Morris. I'm 35, and this was the day my mother looked at me across a candlelit dinner table and said, in front of everyone, "This trip isn't about you." She smiled when she said it. That sharp, performative smile she always wore when she wanted to look sweet but land a blow. Her voice? Soft. Her tone? Controlled. Her words? Cut like a blade pressed just deep enough to bleed without drawing a scream. We were on a family vacation in Destin, Florida, trip I had paid for entirely. The beach house, the boat tours, the groceries, the excursions. Every smiling selfie they'd uploaded that week had my money behind it. And yet, that night, seated under fairy lights with grilled snapper on our plates, I was told gently but unmistakably that I was not part of the narrative. There were 8 seats at that table, but only one felt invisible. Even the t-shirts they had made for the trip-matching navy ones with Jennings Family Beach Week embroidered across the chest listed everyone's name on the back. Everyone but mine. I found mine in a plastic bag on the counter with a sticky note that said, "Eleanor?" Vera, my mother, chuckled. "Autocorrect, sweetie. You know how tech is." But she didn't offer to fix it. No one did. They gave my concert ticket, the one I had booked months in advance, to someone else. A neighbor's son. "You seemed so distant lately, Elena," Callista said, like that explained the erasure. They posted photos I took. Photos I wasn't in. Photos with captions like "Family Forever" and "Grateful for these memories," all curated with me behind the camera, not in front of it. But that dinner was the breaking point. Vera folded her napkin neatly on her lap, looked straight at me, and said, "Please don't make this about yourself." The silence that followed was louder than any confrontation. Forks moved. Glasses clinked. Declan chuckled at something Leora whispered. No one stood up for me. No one even looked at me. I nodded, bit into corn that tasted like ash, and told myself, for the 1000th time, it's okay. Don't cause a scene. They'll love you if you're useful enough. But something in me cracked that night, not a dramatic shatter, just the slow splinter of years of being left out while being leaned on. They didn't just forget me. They erased me. Deliberately. Strategically. Casually. And that's when I knew something had to change. Earlier that day, a young man at the marina asked if I was with the Jennings family. Before I could answer, Vera stepped in with a light laugh. "Oh, she's just tagging along." Just tagging along. The woman who booked the Airbnb. Who paid the deposit. Who shipped Leora's birthday gift 2 months early. Just tagging along. I told myself not to cry. Not here, not now. Not in front of a stranger with a clipboard and a plastic smile. That evening, they played cards on the patio. Callista posted another carousel on Instagram: sunsets, matching swimsuits, picnic tables set for 6. I wasn't in a single photo. A comment popped up. "Where's Elena?" 30 seconds later, it disappeared. I replied with one line. "Photographers don't count, I guess." It vanished too. No response. Just more clapping emojis and heart eyes from people who didn't know better. And that was the moment I realized. It wasn't just that they didn't see me. They had rehearsed how to delete me. Because the worst kind of betrayal isn't anger. It's indifference. That night, I lay in bed counting the slow rotations of the ceiling fan above me, thinking about how often I'd bent myself into silence for their comfort. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't being sensitive. I was being erased. The next morning, I woke early. The house was still. Coffee brewed in the background. I sat on the porch swing with my cup, watching the sky shift from soft seafoam to blazing cerulean. Then Leora came out in socks and a t-shirt too big for her, rubbing her eyes. She looked at me and asked in a sleepy, innocent voice, "Aunt Elena, do you need help with money?" I froze. "What do you mean, baby?" "Grandma said you always waste it. That's why you work all the time, right?" I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just smiled and said softly, "No, honey, I don't need help. I need boundaries." She nodded like she understood. That hurt more than anything Callista or Vera had ever said. Because this wasn't about direct cruelty anymore. This was conditioning. This was a script they'd written, and now they were casting the next generation to believe it. I looked out at the water and whispered into the breeze. How long do you have to disappear before they stop pretending you were ever there? This story doesn't start with me standing tall. It starts with me sitting very still, surrounded by people who smiled at the version of me they invented, and quietly decided, not anymore. Will she keep letting them use her while pretending she doesn't exist? Or is this the moment she finally rewrites the rules of the story they think they own? Stay tuned for part 2. I wasn't always the outsider. There was a time brief, fleeting when my laughter blended into the rest of theirs. When I thought birthdays meant being celebrated, not just tolerated. When my mother stroked my hair and said I was her anchor. But the truth is, love in our family always had conditions, and I started violating them early. I was the second daughter. Callista, my older sister, had the kind of charm that worked like sunlight. Bright, warm, easy to photograph. Me? I was the shadow that made her glow brighter. From the time I was 10, I was called too serious. I read too much. I asked too many questions. While Callista danced at pageants, I sat in the back seat with headphones and homework. Vera used to say, "Elena's our little realist." It sounded like a compliment, but it was a box. Realists aren't invited to dream. They're asked to fund other people's dreams. The first time I really felt outside the circle was in high school. Callista was prom queen. I was president of the STEM club. She got flowers. I got asked to help decorate the gym. At her graduation, they threw a party with custom banners and cupcakes. At mine, they forgot to order food. "We didn't think you'd care," Vera said with a shrug. It wasn't cruelty. It was casual exclusion, the kind that slips in so easily you start thinking you're the problem. So I tried harder. I overcompensated. When Callista wanted to start a fashion blog, I built her website. When Mom needed help filing taxes after the divorce, I stayed up all night with spreadsheets. When Declan forgot their anniversary, I booked them a weekend getaway and pretended it came from him. I was never thanked. I was never invited into the story. I was the backstage crew to their front and center performance. I moved out at 19 not because I was rebellious, but because the silence in that house started to eat me alive. I worked 2 jobs and studied accounting at night. Not glamorous, but stable. Predictable. Something I could control when everything else made me feel small. They didn't visit. Didn't call much either. Unless they needed help. "Elena, can you look over this loan agreement? Can you co-sign the car? It's just temporary. Your sister's starting her brand, could you spot her a few thousand until she gets her first sponsor?" And I always said yes. Because I thought if I helped enough, earned enough, gave enough, they would finally see me. Spoiler, they didn't. It wasn't just the big events where I disappeared. It was the daily ones, the group chats I wasn't added to, the family photos I took but never appeared in, the "oh, we thought you were busy" texts when I showed up uninvited to gatherings I funded. But I told myself stories to survive. They're just disorganized. They love you in their own way. Be patient, they'll come around. The moment that shattered it all came last year. Leora, Callista's daughter, my niece, was turning 8. She loved dolphins, so I paid for a marine biologist to do a special session with real-time interaction, dolphin plushies, custom party favors. The works. Vera told me, "Don't worry, we'll make sure everyone knows it was from you." The next day, Callista posted a video. Auntie Callista pulled off another perfect day. Music. Filters. Hashtags. No mention of me. No one corrected it. And that's when I understood. They didn't forget. They chose. So I built a life outside of them. Quiet, steady. I started my own firm. Worked 12-hour days. Skipped vacations. Invested well, lived frugally. I bought a modest condo in Denver, filled it with books and silence. The kind of silence you earn after years of swallowing your voice. But every time they called, whether it was for a birthday loan or a last-minute emergency, I answered. Because I was still that girl in the backseat hoping for a thank you. Until this trip. Until Destin. Until I realized that no matter how much I gave, they weren't going to love the real Megist, the version of me that quietly paid for everything and asked for nothing. Back at that long dinner table, when Vera said, "Don't make this about yourself." It wasn't just a throwaway line. It was a script I'd heard my whole life. Translated, it meant, stay small. Make it easy for us to shine. Be the silent backbone, but don't expect to be seen. But for the first time, I wasn't just hurt. I was awake. Because I realized something chilling. It wasn't that they didn't see me. It's that they needed me invisible. To keep the story they told about themselves intact. And so, while they scrolled their phones and posed for photos under twinkling lights, I sat in the smallest guest room with the musty curtains, drafting a letter I'd never send. It started like this. To the family that loved my silence more than my presence, thank you. Because now I finally understand. I was never part of the story. I was just the editor. And I'm done fixing everyone else's chapters. In part 3, Elena stops waiting for a thank you and starts quietly reclaiming power. What happens when the invisible one decides she's done being used? Stay tuned. They say the loudest people in the room are rarely the strongest. The strong ones? They're the ones who survive without applause. When I left home at 19, I didn't have a safety net, just a scholarship that covered part of my tuition and a part-time job tutoring accounting students older than me. I lived in a studio apartment the size of a storage unit with a leaky faucet and a front door that jammed every other Tuesday. There was no one to call when the fridge broke. No one to spot me when rent was due 2 days before payday. No shared family group chat sending links to pre-cooked grocery plans. Just me. And the quiet. For the first few years, I worked every job I could find. Cashier at a gas station. Evening shift at a call center. Night janitor at the campus library where I studied between mopping aisles. I averaged 3-4 hours of sleep a night. Not because I wanted to prove anything, but because I didn't have a choice. And even then, I still sent birthday gifts to Leora. Still forwarded money when mom's car trouble mysteriously lined up with her girls' trip to Palm Springs. Still Venmo'd Callista $500 when she couldn't quite cover the shoot budget for her brand deal. Every transfer came with a silent promise to myself. This will be the last time. It never was. But I wasn't just surviving. I was building. In the early mornings, I studied. Numbers became my escape, predictable, clean, unforgiving in the best way. Unlike people, numbers don't pretend. I graduated summa cum laude, unnoticed. No family in the stands, no celebratory dinner. Just a cheap bottle of Prosecco and the night shift waiting for me afterward. I got my first real job at a mid-sized firm in Denver. The pay was modest, but the mentorship? Life-changing. My manager, a woman named Dana Whitmore, was the first person in a long time who looked at me like I wasn't invisible. "You think too small," she told me one day, after I declined a leadership program. "I don't want to be a bother," I muttered. She looked me in the eye and said, "You are the value, stop acting like an expense." That sentence? It rewired something in me. From that moment, I stopped apologizing for being ambitious. I took on tougher clients. I volunteered for presentations. I built a side consulting business to help small women-owned startups manage their finances quietly, steadily, after hours. By 30, I had more in my savings than Callista had made in her entire influencer career. By 32, I bought my first property, a duplex I renovated room by room with YouTube tutorials and rented out to fund my second. No loans. No co-signers. No press releases. Just grit. I never posted about it. Didn't document the grind on Instagram. Didn't update the family chat because, well, I still wasn't in it. But they called me when they needed a quick favor. Elena the reliable. Elena, the background bank. I said yes, less often now. But still enough. Still enough that I felt them tethered to me even when they didn't see me. Sometimes I wondered why I didn't cut them off completely. Why I didn't change my number or block their emails or close the shared account Vera used only for groceries. But the truth? I still wanted them to notice. To say, "We see you." Even if just once. That's what made the Destin trip so cruel. Not because it was the first time I'd been overlooked, but because it was the last time I expected not to be. And yet, as the sun set on day 3 of the vacation, something changed. Not out loud, not in rage. But inside me, something quietly snapped into place. While they toasted on the patio with glasses I paid for and cutlery I polished, I opened my laptop in the small guest room and pulled up the shared family account dashboard. The one Vera still accessed, for emergencies. The one Callista used to book couples excursions for her and Declan. I didn't freeze it. Not yet. First, I downloaded receipts. Screenshots of the dolphin tour. The boat rental. The grocery delivery orders with brands I didn't eat and wine I didn't touch. Every line item was a breadcrumb leading to the truth. They didn't forget me. They just expected me to fund the fantasy, without ever appearing in it. So I made a new folder, titled it Emotional Overdrafts, and saved everything. That night, after they went to sleep, I sat on the porch swing with a blanket and my phone glowing soft in the dark. I opened a voicemail I'd kept locked away for 3 years. My father's voice. The only one that had never made me feel small. "Baby girl, I know they make you feel like you're not needed. But I saw you. I always saw you." His tone was low, unpolished, real. He talked about the dinner party I hosted that no one thanked me for. The dishes I washed that I didn't dirty. The effort they edited out. Then he said this. "You don't have to prove your place to people who would rather forget you than thank you." I listened to it twice. Then once more, just to memorize the pause between his words. It wasn't a war cry. It wasn't a motivational quote. It was evidence. Evidence that someone who mattered. I saw me. And from that moment forward, I decided. If they were going to delete me from the story, I would take the pen back. In part 4, Elena stops documenting and starts acting. A family dinner. A confrontation. And a truth bomb that no one saw coming. You won't want to miss it. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. It's the silence right before thunder. The breath before a storm breaks. That was the air around our final family dinner in Destin. Vera had set the table just so white linens, flickering LED candles shaped like seashells, napkins folded into tiny sailboats. Callista hummed while arranging her phone on a tripod for candid family footage. Leora twirled on the grass nearby, still glowing from the dolphin tour I'd paid for and hadn't been invited to. No one asked why I didn't join the excursion. No one offered me a seat. Not on the boat. Not in the memory. I brought out the last pitcher of lemonade, topped off everyone's glass like a waitress who knew her tip would never come. Then I sat quietly, chewing my dry grilled chicken, determined not to speak unless spoken to. They didn't wait long. Vera, always the opening act for family performances, set down her fork and folded her hands, as if preparing to bless the food all over again. "Elena," she began, using that brittle tone reserved for servers who forgot the dressing. "You've seemed distant this week. Not your usual self." Before I could respond, Callista leaned forward, elbows on the table like it was an intervention. "We all came here to reconnect, you know? To make memories. But you've made it really hard to do that." There it was. Not a question. A scripted accusation. I let the silence stretch, let it tighten around the table like an invisible thread. Then I spoke, calmly, clearly. "Uncomfortable or uncooperative?" I asked. Vera blinked. "That's not what we..." "No," I cut in, gently. "But it's exactly what you meant." No one defended me. Not Declan, who suddenly found his fork deeply fascinating. Not Leora, who stopped twirling and froze like a child who'd overheard the wrong line of adult conversation. not Callista, who had the audacity to look wounded. So I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit play. From the speaker came Vera's syrupy voice. She's always been sensitive. We've tried everything, but she just sees things that aren't there. Drama follows her. Then Callista's voice followed, sharp and familiar. Remember graduation? She cried over her name not being on the banner. Made the whole day about herself. I didn't say a word. Didn't explain the context. I just let it play out. Unfiltered. Undeniable. When it ended, I placed the phone face down on the table, looked up, and said, "You've been telling this version of me for so long, you started believing it was the only one that existed. But I've been the one cleaning up behind your stories, covering the gaps, funding the fantasy." No one moved. Even Callista's camera had gone still. "You want me to apologize for making things uncomfortable," I continued. "But the discomfort isn't mine. It's yours. Because for the first time, I'm not shrinking." Declan stood abruptly, muttered something about needing air, and walked inside. Callista looked like she might cry, but the tears didn't fall for me. Vera stared at me like she was searching for a script that no longer worked. And me? I finished my chicken. No dramatic exit. No screaming. Just stillness. Then I stood. Picked up my plate. Walked into the kitchen. Rinsed it. Stacked it in the dishwasher. Dried my hands. And walked straight to my laptop. What happened next didn't involve shouting. Or locking doors. Or demanding apologies. It involved clicks. Cold, final, necessary clicks. I opened the shared financial dashboard. Logged in with the same password Vera had insisted we use for transparency. And went line by line. I froze the shared grocery account. Disabled the Uber profile. Cancelled the streaming services. Removed access to the cloud folder titled Jennings Memories 2024. Then I opened the last tab. The family credit card. The one they thought was limitless. Like my patience. I hovered over the status. Then clicked. Freeze. They didn't know it yet. But by breakfast, everything they took for granted would stop working. The next morning, the house buzzed with unusual tension. Callista couldn't order her vegan groceries error message. Vera's Uber app kept crashing. Declan's reservation for the return rental car was mysteriously declined. They blamed bad Wi-Fi. Blamed the heat. Never once suspected that the storm had come from within the house. I sipped my coffee in silence, letting them unravel. Then came the final spark. The concert. The one I'd paid for, planned, reserved 6 front row seats for. I walked into the kitchen just in time to hear Callista say, "It's gonna be perfect. 6 seats, Declan and I up front, Mom and Leora behind." I interrupted gently. "Where's my seat?" The room froze. Vera turned, drying her hands. "We thought you weren't interested anymore." Callista didn't look up from her phone. "We gave it to that cute neighbor boy. He really wanted to go." I didn't argue. Didn't fight. I just pulled up the Venmo record. $740. Full payment family concert night. Silence. Then I went upstairs to pack. When I entered my room, my suitcase was gone. In its place? A note in Vera's handwriting. "Hope you don't mind, switched with Declan so he can sleep near Callista. Yours is the laundry room now. Love, Mom." I found my bag propped beside a utility closet. Windowless. Smelling faintly of mildew and dryer sheets. I didn't cry. Didn't slam anything. Just packed slowly, carefully, like I was folding away not just clothes, but the final remnants of a role I'd outgrown. In part 5, Elena walks away not in revenge but in power. And the family she once carried discovers what it means to stand on their own. But it might be too late. I didn't leave in the middle of the night. I didn't slam the door. Didn't scream, or burn bridges, or give them the satisfaction of a dramatic exit. Instead, I left like I'd lived with grace no one ever acknowledged. My suitcase was packed by the door, zipped and upright like it too was ready to go. I woke up before dawn, not from anxiety this time, but from peace. A strange, silent clarity that filled every corner of the room Vera once said was temporary. There was no good morning in the house. Just muffled footsteps, soft groans of old floors, and the kind of awkward silence that meant someone had figured out the card wasn't working anymore. At breakfast, they acted like nothing was wrong. Callista scrolled on her phone. Declan muttered about rebooking flights. Vera brewed coffee like it was a normal Thursday. No one looked at me. But I knew. Their text messages had already come in hours earlier while I sipped coffee at the airport lounge. Elena, what did you do? This isn't funny. We're stuck here with no Uber and no groceries. Fix it now. Is this your idea of revenge? I didn't reply. I didn't even feel anger. I just deleted the threads. Because when someone asks why you didn't keep the lights on, they usually weren't the ones paying the power bill. That final breakfast, Callista pulled out a surprise. A photo album. For Mom, she said brightly, placing it on the table with a flourish. Vera's eyes lit up. Oh, Callista, you didn't have to. They flipped through page after page. Leora at the dock. Callista and Declan on paddle boards. 4th of July dinner under twinkling lights. Then I saw it. A photo I had taken, arms full of towels, sun in my eyes, a rare, genuine smile. Underneath it, the caption read, "Unidentified Guest." They laughed. Not cruelly. Just easily. Comfortably. As if it wasn't me. As if I was just a helpful extra in their summer highlight reel. I didn't say anything. I rinsed my mug, walked outside, and sat on a bench near the parking lot, watching the palm trees sway gently in the morning breeze. Inside my phone, I opened a folder proof they never saw me. Inside. Screenshots of bookings. Bank statements. Voice memos. The photo with the caption. And I renamed it. Archived. No longer active. I wasn't erasing what happened. I was letting it go. Because healing doesn't mean pretending they didn't hurt you. It means choosing not to let their hurt define what you build next. When I landed in Denver, I walked into my apartment, and for the first time, I felt light. No buzzing family chat. No calendar reminders to check shared grocery lists. No pressure to shrink for their comfort. Just me. Barefoot in my kitchen, strong coffee brewing, morning light cutting across the floor like gold. That afternoon, I opened my email. At the top, a message from Callista. Subject: Can we talk? I didn't open it. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer felt obligated to teach her how to see me. The next day, a voicemail from Vera. We didn't raise you to be this cold, she said, her voice brittle and wounded, like I had broken something sacred. But she didn't say, "We're sorry." She didn't say, "We see what we did." Just that I should come back. I didn't listen to the rest. I pressed delete. Some wounds aren't healed by apologies. Especially the ones that were never acknowledged in the first place. A week later, I passed by a small independent bookstore I'd never noticed before. It sat quietly between a thrift shop and a vegan cafe. Inside, it smelled like old wood and new beginnings. I ordered a coffee, sat by the window, and flipped through brochures stacked near the register. One caught my eye. Solo Women's Hiking Retreat, Zion National Park. I scanned the QR code. Booked a spot. No need to ask for time off. No one to notify. Just me. My money. My calendar. My decision. And that was the most radical act of all. Before I left, I got one final message from Leora. A voice note. Hi Aunt Elena. I liked the dolphin tour. Grandma said it was from her. But I told her you paid for it. I remembered. Okay, bye. I sat on my couch, hand over my mouth, eyes stinging not from pain, but from unexpected validation. Even in a house that rewrote the script, One person remembered the truth. Do I think they'll ever really see what they did? Maybe. Do I think they'll ever fully own it? Probably not. But here's what I know now. I didn't leave because I wasn't loved. I left because I was only loved conditionally. Loved for what I gave, not who I was. And I'm not available for that version of family anymore. If they want to rebuild something real, it'll start with respect. Not guilt trips. With boundaries. Not blank checks. With seeing me. Not spending me. And if not, that's fine too. Because I'm no longer looking for seats at tables I bought but was never welcome at. Have you ever had to choose peace over a family's approval? Ever walked away not in hate, but in self-respect? Tell me in the comments. Just type 1 if this story hit home for you. Or share where you're watching from. I'd love to know. Because here, your voice matters. And I'll be here with the next story that just might feel a little too familiar.